We've only just begun.
You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation, as brought to you by the Foundational Friday. Our core aim is to present and experience an opportunity for your soul to reascend to its place of origin by cultivating a healthier spiritual awareness and emotional maturity. This show serves as a free offering to the greater community and an addendum requirement for all ANU spiritual training students. For all those listening, if you'd like to move closer to the calculations and fundamental understandings of the ANU order, be sure to pick up the book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. If you desire a spiritual reading to help you map your current spiritual position in the face of your world and learn the greatest pathways for your fortune in the season, you can go to the SaduluHouse.com. That is SADULUHOUSE.com. You can also go to OrishaReligion.com to find out how you can become a student and member of the new spiritual order. That's ORISHARELIGION.com. Let us begin. ANU Nation presents live streaming video, where you will receive more lessons and more knowledge on spirituality and metaphysics. Check out ANU Nation's live video stream at www.youtube.com/ANU Nation and subscribe for the latest videos and information. Once again, the address for live video streaming is www.youtube.com/ANU Nation. See you there.
As many of you know and may remember that on Fridays, every third Friday of the month, we do a live Q&A. So this Friday is no different. This is an opportunity for you to call in with your questions, spiritual, metaphysical, occult, unseen, ghostly, mystical, celestial, and otherwise, and get the answers that you've been hoping for or looking for or searching for. That call-in number is 347-945-7680. Again, that's 347-945-7680. Let me bring this music down, actually, because I really don't need it. But so that's what we want to do in this time. This is an opportunity where I'll be answering questions, but more importantly, or also importantly, reviewing the emails that I've been receiving with questions in them, and this is where they get answered. Okay, so I want to remind everyone again that if you have spiritual questions or questions that are pertaining to basically general questions about things, that you want to submit them at questions@anunation.org. That's QUESTION at ANUNATION.org. That's where you want to send your questions, okay? Any of your spiritual questions. Do not send them to me personally, and certainly do not send them on Facebook. Okay, that's very important, because I'm in the process of really trying to shut down my personal Facebook page in some shape, form, or fashion, because it's really it just kind of gets in the way sometimes, just the things that come through it. So I'm trying to get everyone to get over into the right email address, or your questions will be lost, and we certainly don't want that to happen. So you want to call in again. You can call in now, 347-945-7680, and you want to send in your questions at questions@anunation.org. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get right into some of our emails. And, you know, while I'm in the midst of doing that, I see the phone lines are starting to fill up now. So, you know, those who have a question, you know, just press the number 1. All right, just press the number 1 on your phone, and we'll go from there. But let me get us started off with a couple of questions here in email. And also remember that every Sunday at 1 p.m., ANU Asafo airs on the Enlightenment and Transformation channel. And as promised, we do have some new pieces coming forth, some new shows, audio and video. All right, so you definitely want to get in on that and head over to the YouTube page for ANU Nation, youtube.com/ANU Nation, and subscribe to the channel, so that way when I do the live shows, you'll be informed, because a lot of the shows I'll be doing will be impromptu, so that way you know when new stuff is coming up. I have a couple people who've emailed me about different ideas, like you know, things that they wanted me to speak on, and hadn't realized that I had already covered those subjects previously. So that's why it's good to, you know, on the Blog Talk channel, to follow it, you know, click follow for the show, so whenever I do a show impromptu, or if it's scheduled, you know it's there. You'll at least see the title of the show. And also on the YouTube page, you want to also do the same thing, youtube.com/ANU Nation. That's ANUNATION. So that way you'll know what's happening and when it's happening. All right. But the first email I want to read, usually I start with an email of gratitude. I actually didn't do that this time. I guess we'll loop back around to one of those, because there was a bunch that actually came in this month between our last Q&A and today. There were a bunch of emails that came in, just people saying thank you, you know, and I'm so appreciative of them. And that's why I didn't really start off with one, because I was like, which one do I start with? They're like all so beautiful, you know, whether they're the short ones or the long ones. It's awesome, you know, when people recognize some of the components that are helping to just shine a little light on the clues in their life, you know, and when they take out the time to say thank you. You know, I know we live in an age now where people don't really take out time to even write one another or anything like that. You know, it's really just short texts or IMs or things like that. So when someone takes out the time to actually construct a letter, you know, I'm always very appreciative. So, you know, I just want to thank everyone for that, and I'll get to some of those. But I'm going to start with one, and you know, when I do these, I never really say the name, so I'm just going to use these initials, JH. And subject of what he was asking, he was saying Ifa or Asor Aset. And he says, I'm a little confused. What is the difference? I see one as looking more inward as far as yourself is concerned. Is it possible to study and advance in both spiritual systems? I've been studying Asor Aset since February of 2013 and have been knowing about Yoruba Ifa for 15 years, and I keep going back to learn more. Okay, so this is a person who is dealing, those who may not be familiar with Asor Aset. Asor Aset is not actually a traditional spiritual system in a sense. Asor Aset is headed up by Shekum Shekum or Ra Nefum, and if anyone's familiar with him, he wrote the book Medu Netir, and he also wrote Astrology of the I King and a couple other ones. Some really good work he has in there, and he heads up the order of Asor Aset. Like our new order, it's a learning system, it's a spiritual system equipped with initiations and everything like that, but it's not necessarily a old traditional system, you know, like Ifa or like, you know, Orisha tradition. It's a little different. Not that takes anything away from it, because it doesn't. Okay, so that would be the first start of what is different. Okay, Asor Aset is something that was designed fairly recently, and when I say recently, I'm speaking, you know, 30-40 years, not, you know, last year. But and they have a few chapters around, you know, they've been around for some time. They even have their own form of divination cards, the Medu cards. You know, some people really enjoy using them, and obviously the Medu cards, and even by the name of Asor Aset, you can probably guess that they're coming out of Kemetic paradigm mainly. And he's wrote several books, you know, I'm just named a couple. He also has Afrocentric spiritual unions, you know, and there's a bunch more. But in any event, when we're speaking about the difference, that's one of them. When you're dealing with Ifa or Sourset, it's always important to remember that Ifa is not it's not a deity. Ifa is not a religion. Ifa is a set of information. Okay, it's a corpus of information. That is what Ifa is. Okay, so Orunmila is the one who brings us the words of Ifa. Okay, being the second in command to Olodumare. All right. So in that instance, let's talk about the differences. You said you think one is inner, one is not really. This is the thing you got to understand first. Whatever spiritual system you're dealing with, it's only a system that allows you and helps you to decode life events. That's it. That's what these spiritual events are. Okay. So there's no, well, which one is right? Which one is better, which one does this, which one does that. It doesn't actually work like that. The way the systems work is that they're just different people's interpretation of how the world works. So a Sourset is Shekem's, which means King of Kings, his name, by the way. It's Shekem's interpretation of what the Medu actually meant, the Medu Netir, the divine speech, what the Neteru we're actually speaking about, and things like that, and how we can live our life in a healthy and upstanding way in this day and time. That is his interpretation. Whereas when you're dealing with other systems, it's other people's interpretation. So can you learn both of them? Of course, because they're just interpretations, and they really need to be viewed as such. None of them need to be looked at as absolute. I have to do a Sourset, and I'm totally a Sourset, and then I'm going to do this. No, because then you'll get stuck. Okay, you can't really jump like that without really just causing confusion along the way. You have to understand that the system that you need to be learning, the premier system, is the system of your purpose on the planet. That is your spiritual system. What is my purpose on the planet, and how do I fulfill it? And by the time you start getting into that, you may find I'm not dealing with any quote-unquote religion or anybody's order or anything like that. I have to go a totally different way that maybe nobody else went because of my unique nia or my unique purpose. Okay, so you always kind of want to approach it from that place, in my opinion, based on what you're dealing with and what you're asking me here. But like you said, you always tend to come back to Ifa because Ifa is inside of you, just like the Neteru is inside of you. So you really can't escape it because there's no it's not as marginalized as people would like to believe. All of these systems are one, okay, because they're one interpretations, expressions. So the interpretation was a divine speech, or we are the interpretation. That's one way to put it. And these different systems are explanations of that one interpretation that we all are of the universe. Okay, we explain the universe. All right, the universe doesn't explain itself to us through religion. It doesn't work like that. God doesn't create a religion. We create the religions because we need to have an understanding of natural, cosmic, celestial, and metaphysical events that go on around us. So theoretically, you can create your own religion based on your own understanding. And your understanding may be a combination of Kemetic understanding as well as Yoruba understanding. Nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. You can do both at the same time. They should not conflict with one another. If you're taught by your instructors that, hey, you can't mix that together, then just be respectful and say, okay, no problem. But what you do at your altar in the dark in your own home is your business, and it's no one else's. So certainly, JH, you can use them both. Okay, before I take our next... We'll go to our next email. I'm actually going to take a call from 917 area code. From 917 area code. You're on Foundational Friday. What is your name and what is your question?
Hello, good evening, Yuya. My name is greetings. My name is Surabi Yancy. Yes, I'm calling. Yeah. I am calling because I'm trying to figure out, I don't know how much time I have to explain, but I've been trying to figure out a bunch of occurrences in my life for the past 3 years. actually 4 years, since January of 2010, ending in like illness and confusion and revelations. Eventually leading me into what I'm trying to get into, which is DeFi and all that stuff. Yeah, since 2010, I've been having moments in my sleep in which I would just wake up crying for no particular reason. And when I cry, I feel like there's a rush in the back of my head up to the back of my neck up to the top of my crown. And yes, my mother sees me and she's like, "What the heck is going on with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just start thinking about random things and I go into tears." Then this was back in 2010. Then in 2011, I decided to go to my first reading with an Edo priest. After that, everything went down the drain. I started getting sick, dizzy spells, I felt like I lost ground with my surroundings. Every time I go inside a bus or a train, I feel like I'm in a roller coaster ride. Every time the wind hits me, I feel like I'm going to go flying. It's pretty much from the whole month, from 2012, December 2012 to December 2013, I've been going only around I've been doing errands around where I live. I don't take the bus. I don't take the train. So that has limited me in many ways in finding a job. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Another thing, this past 3 days ago, I decided to go back to my altar, my ancestral altar. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, I was falling asleep, and then I hear a word pop into my head, Ibadu, something like that. And I was like, "What, Erica Badu? What does this have to do with anything?" But I heard Ibadu, not Badu. So I was so tired, I was going to go turn on my computer and search for that word. But I was like, hopefully I'll remember tomorrow when I wake up. So that's what I did, and I started asking all the Nigerians that I have on my Facebook group, and they were giving me the turnarounds. "Oh, this is something you get when you initiate. I wouldn't know why your ancestors will tell you this stuff, And I was like, what is it? What is it? What does it do? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. All this stuff plus that, it's like I'm going crazy because, I'm trying to figure out what is my path. And, yeah.
All right. So let's hit the first one. It's a lot of information there, obviously.
No, I know, yeah.
But if they will move to the second one. But they're actually the same situation, as most things are typically generally connected. Okay, so the first piece, what's happening with you? You're pregnant, okay? Now I'm explaining what that means. All right, what you were feeling in the night was Kundalini spikes. Okay, you're feeling Kundalini spikes, and what happens is the energy moves from your south node or your south pole to your north pole. That's the direction. Just like if you watch the cartoon, the Avatar of the little boy's bath, he has an arrow that's on the top of his head, and that arrow points, from the back going to the front, like towards his first eye, his brow chakra. Okay, that's the movement of energy throughout your body. Okay, it starts from your south, goes up to your north. Now, what you were feeling in the middle of the night, it actually was starting in your belly button, but you were asleep, so you weren't feeling that. It was coming from your belly button, coming up to the back of your head and to the top of your head. Okay, now that crying that you were feeling was the overwhelming, or the overwhelming of your emotional body, because it was spikes. Okay, and those moments, it would have been really good if you would have stayed up, and it seems like if you would have just stayed up.
No, I did. I stood up. Sorry, I stood up. I stood up and I actually, since I was feeling weird, I went to my mother's room. And I was telling her, and as I was telling her, I burst into tears again. And a flash, every time I cried harder, this flash, this energy went from all the way to my back to the top of my head. And I just said randomly, you know, there's, even though I'm not Christian or any of it, I never was a devout Christian, I just said that there is God, you know? Because I felt it was like a silent message. So yeah.
Okay. You're absolutely right. There was a message. We'll get to that. So the first thing that you could have done, or that would have been great to do, because this is probably going to come back up again. We'll get to that, and then we'll get to the next thing, is two things. Either you could have, three things. You could have yelled, okay, at the top of your lungs, to the point that it would have felt like your heart was going to come out of your throat. That, sung, but it would have to be very vigorous singing, okay?
I actually did.
Okay, excellent. The third
I actually did, because I woke up, sorry?
Or you could have
I'm sorry for interrupting. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. I know it's probably been a while since you've been able to really tell someone, so sometimes it happens.
I don't have anybody. I don't have anyone to talk to about this.
Yeah, because most people wouldn't understand. It's a very personal thing. Okay, but what was happening is that you were getting these energy spikes coming from your center, coming out the top of your head, which was causing this pressure and obviously this feeling of disorientation. Okay, so those things, even in certain traditions, you would have been given herbs so that you can vomit. Okay, and in vomit, you would remove any blockages that energy had to get to where it needed to go. Because vomiting helps to clean your system, to clean your blood, and to make you a more smoother and lubricated path, or lubricated road for spirits that want to work through you. Okay, so now, what happened when you went and got that reading and you said it ceased, that reading blocked what was said to you, however you interpreted it, whatever prayers that was said, however it was done, it blocked your pathway. It knotted you up. Okay? I want you to vision a snake that is constantly striking, almost like an AC current. It's oscillating. And imagine if you took that snake and you tied it up in a knot. Now, its head would still be able to strike, but it wouldn't have the same gracefulness that it once had because its body is now tied into a knot. Okay, so it would leap out to strike, but then it would probably fall. It would miscalculate its movements because its body has been knotted up. Its body is knotted up. You have to untie the knot, and that vomiting and that singing would do that. One of the things that you have to clear this up a lot, you have to talk about this a lot. You have to let it be known. Let it be known. Okay, you got to talk about it a lot. You have to get this energy back out. And more specifically, it's got to come out of your mouth. Okay? So when I say talk about it, I don't mean, journal and, write a bunch of journals to yourself and then burn them in a fire. No, you actually have to speak out of your mouth about this a lot. Okay? And that will clear that passageway. Okay, you have a blockage and you're suppressing. What was happening is that your body was going through an alchemical process in your sleep. Okay? You could have even had a stroke behind this. And I guarantee you, if you had a monitor in that moment, if you would have checked your blood pressure, it would have been really high.
Yeah.
Because that was the alchemy that was occurring. So that's what you want to do. As far as what was done was done. You got to remove that blockage. And don't worry about the tears coming. That's fine. Because it's a child inside you, and it's a child trying to stand up. Okay? And it's just like...
Yes.
Well, you may have experienced it, but a lot of people do when they're younger and they have certain spiritual powers and spiritual gifts, or usually when we're young we have spiritual insight, and we share them with adults. They usually traumatize us out of our gifts. We get in trouble, we get spankings, or we're made to go get down on our knees and pray because the devil is talking to us and all these different things like that. So what happens is that energy gets suppressed. So I want you to imagine the same way those children get traumatized when they get sat down. And this is not spiritual. This is even with education and social matters. This is the same. You got that reading. You had a child that was trying to stand up inside of you, and that child was suppressed and sat back down. So now you have this scared, broken child inside of you. Okay? And I want you to imagine, just like when you look at children at a playground, they scream. That's the first thing they do. When you see recess let out, the first thing they do is yell. Because when they're sitting in classrooms all day, they're getting spikes because their system is still forming, but they're not able to get those spikes off. Until they get to recess, they scream, and then they feel immediately bliss. They go to the playground, start acting silly, they fall out, because they're feeling that bliss of soul connection. That's what your soul is trying to do, is trying to stand up. Okay, so that's Ibadu. Ibadu is your power chant. Okay? It's your power. Don't worry about what it means. Don't worry about what it means. It's actually a place. I'll just say that to you. Okay? It's a place that you need to travel to. So what you want to do when you're falling asleep at night or when you're doing your meditations, start using that word as your mantra. Instead of, because mantras sometimes are long sentences, but you don't always need that. You can just use that word over and over, Ibadu, 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 and keep saying it to the point that it forms its own character in your mouth. Okay? Because you may start Ibadu, Ibadu, and then 5 minutes later it might be like Ibadu, 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 Ibadu. That's what happens when you do mantras. They start to change. Wherever it wants to go, let it go. Usually they'll get real nasally. Stuff like that will happen. You want to start using that power chant, and that power chant is going to give that child courage enough to stand back up. Okay? When the child, you won't have those feelings of disorientation like you've been having. Okay? You feel disoriented on moving vehicles because the child is disoriented. Okay? Because girl, it was happy, and then it got suppressed. All right? So that's actually true, that, brother. You want to, that's something that a reader's not going to solve for you. You have to do that for yourself. But you just do those chants. Okay? Especially when you're going to sleep, do those chants. Ibadu, 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 and touch your belly. Okay? Touch your belly, and it's particularly your belly button, which is the pathway to Ori Inu, which is your inner consciousness. That's where we touch the Ori Inu, the belly button.
It's in the belly, the Ori Inu.
Yes. Okay. A lot of people say, that the Ori Inu is the consciousness. It's in the head. That's not true, though. This isn't the Ori. But the inner head, because Inu means inner, the inner head is actually coming from the belly, okay, which is kind of interesting when you think about it.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, that's where you want to focus from, brother. You want to do it that way, okay?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I'm going to really try this tonight. Thank you very much. You have a good evening.
All right. So you... All right.
Okay, beautiful. All right. So, again, and that situation is common. What he was speaking of, having those spikes. Children have them all the time. Sometimes, if you ever get an opportunity to just listen to them when they're sleeping, which a lot of us do, like parents, because that's one of the coolest things to do is just to watch a child. If you look around them, you'll see a lot of very interesting energy around their auric body. So, and it's critical not to scare your gifts out of your children. That's another common thing. And unfortunately, when that happens, a lot of times people don't come to it till they're much older because of the level of chastisement or the level of fear that's been instilled. So you always want to be really careful about that because it can lead to some pain later. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to another email, actually, and try to go back and forth between the emails and the calls. But I have one from a JS. It's pretty short. And it says, I need spiritual guidance I want to get back to my roots. Okay, this is a very like general question. I get a lot of questions like this a lot, and I know this is one of those like I'm reaching out, just kind of shotgun blast wherever my pellets lay. They lay. I want to get back to my roots. I need spiritual guidance. Okay, well, when you have a situation like that, JS, or you have that feeling, that inkling, first you have to determine what are your roots. I don't know what your roots are. Okay, you need to get back to your roots in terms of how you felt when you were a child. Do you need to get back to your roots to where you were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago? You have to determine that, and you have to determine your roots. What does that mean in the next step? Because you don't want to necessarily, get back to your roots and start from square one again. You want to get back most likely to a feeling that you had at some point, or you want to understand where you came from. Okay, and there are many different ways to do that depending on how you look at it and where you want to begin. Okay, obviously we all come from soul energy. That's obvious. Okay, and one of the best things that you can do to kind of understand your spiritual or your soul roots is just to start reading different stories, especially different major texts from around the world. Like if you really want to understand your roots and your origins, start reading the Torah, read the Quran, read the Bible. Okay, read the Bhagavad Gita, read all of these different ancient books, even the Necronomicon, especially books that people have kind of committed their entire way of being to. Okay, you want to read books like that, because the truth is all of those books, all they're about is the story of your soul. It's like there was a song out by Heatwave many years ago called The Star of the Story. Okay, and the star of the story, that's you. So when you're reading these different books and where people are praising this God or this unseen, there's always an unseen God that is too busy for the fears of men and women. So they have these different emissaries that they send in the form of angels or whatever. That unseen God that they're referring to is you. Okay, so the best way that you can come to an understanding of where you began is by reading different people's accounts and chronicles of how you interacted with them throughout the years. Okay, that's all these sacred scriptures are, and they're all sacred, even the ones that have been perverted. Okay, because your ori, or your inner consciousness, if you're coming in it with being pure of heart, and that's really what it's about, JS. Starting from a place where you are pure of heart. Only the mysteries only reveal themselves to people who are pure of heart. That's why when you look at like different movies, like, and they'll be like aliens or ghosts or fairies or sprites and things like that, you always find in the movies that the only ones who will see them are the children. There was a movie back in the day, sometimes I refer to it a lot, called The Last Unicorn. And The Last Unicorn, you had this magician. He was a wizard called Schmendrick the Great. And he basically, like, he couldn't perform any magic. Like, he was just always bombing out. All of his tricks turned out wrong. He was like Orko from He-Man, but nothing he ever did was correct, like as far as his magic. But when the unicorn appeared, unicorns, for the most part, when everyone else would see them, they would look like regular horses. But he immediately saw, a unicorn. Okay, and now, of course, the unicorn represents someone who has that first eye activation, because uni is one, and then corn, right? When you understand the science of Osor, or who we also call Osiris, or we also call Obatala, one of the words that he was given, or the names, was he was called the corn deity, or the god of corn. Okay, because it is said that the pineal organ, the pineal gland, or the first eye, is approximately the size. It's shaped like a pine cone, but it's the size of a kernel of corn. So Osiris, where we get iris, because we're dealing with the eye here, was called the corn deity, or the corn god. Okay, so the unicorn again represents that one eye. So the corn is the eye. Unicorn, one eye. All right, or one pineal, seen with that vision. But it was Schmendrick who was able to see the unicorn for what it was, because he was pure of heart. He didn't have any like great ability where he would feel ego. He felt like, I'm no musician, I'm no magician, I'm no good, I don't do this. And that humility and that purity and that sincerity is how the mysteries are actually opened up to you. That's when the mysteries are open, when you come and you have an understanding of unconditional connectiveness. Unconditional connectedness, when you have an understanding of purity of heart, when you have an understanding of having an open spirit. then there's really, honestly, there's no celestial mystery that you cannot figure out, that you cannot learn, or really, more importantly, that will reveal itself to you that you will not see. This is why children always see things and adults don't. Because children don't have layers and layers and layers and layers of ego and opinion when they encounter something. They don't encounter it with judgment. They encounter things only to say, wow, that's it. Okay, so in terms of getting back to your roots and your spiritual guidance, that's where you want to begin, man. You want to make sure that your heart is pure. You want to make sure that you have an unconditional love affair with the journey of getting back to your roots. So that way, when you do certain things and it may not pan out the way you want, or people don't respond to you in the way that you may want them to respond, you're okay with it. And it doesn't stop or slow up your journey in either way. Okay, so you definitely want to do that, brother. All right, as far as finding your destiny, very important. Okay, and also for those listening, phone lines are filled up. And I want to give you the number again: 347-945-7680. 347-945-7680. And if you want to ask a question, just hit the number 1. All right, so I'm gonna go to the next one. This one is from RW. And he says, greetings. I was fortunate enough to have been exposed to you on Yusuf's show, and I'm very interested in growing in the manner that you were describing on both shows. Please inform me as to what steps I need to take in order to learn what it is I was created to do, other than that which I have already discerned. I am familiar with many of the things that you address, and I would like to become much more in tune with my spirit and my soul through whatever process is necessary. Thank you for your time and effort. Peace. Okay, here's the thing with that. Obviously, very general question. You know, how do I become a better person? Again, there's a million and one ways. And this is where, and again, I'm not going to really critique the question, but I do need to decode the question to a degree, because I know, you know, when we're typing things, we just put things out, and it doesn't necessarily mean that was our fullest, the fullest extent of our expression. But one of the things that was said here was that I'm very interested in growing in the manner that you were describing on both shows. Not really sure of what I was describing on those shows, by the way. That was a while ago. But please inform me as to what steps I need to take in order to learn what it is I was created to do. What steps do you need to learn to take in order to learn what it is that you were created to do? The truth is, I can only give you my template. I can only give you very, very basic templates that will lead you to the door, and you have to try to go through the veil yourself. And most people do not go through the veil. Most people don't make it that far through the veil. Okay, so it's kind of important for you to understand that those steps that you're speaking about come through personal interaction. That's what a real teacher does. When a teacher has an opportunity to speak with you and interact with you, or an instructor, they can determine what is needed for your level of education. If they give you something generic, okay, it's pretty much worthless. All right. If they give you something that's, because even like with our new spiritual training, it's very hands-on. And that's one of the first things that students always kind of have, and students who are in it, you guys know what I'm talking about. Activity number 1. Everyone. So especially for those of you who are listening who are stuck on activity 1, don't feel bad. Everyone got stuck on activity number 1, because the way my training is set up is that you get your hands right into the mix from activity 1, because you become your teacher. Okay, I'm kind of like the nymph on the side who's just kind of giving you some guidance. I'm like the dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons. I'm just dropping little hints. Hey, go that way. You might want to go this way. Hey, check this out. Hey, have you thought about this question? This, that. But you have to put yourself not only at the center of the learning experience, but at the center of your teaching experience, separate from the educational experience. You can come across educators who will find things inside of you and draw them out. But once they draw them out, it's for you to look at it and say, oh, this is what I have inside of me too. Okay, so let me work with this, or let me work with that. Okay, I will also say to you, any system of learning where someone tells you have to initiate in order to be in it is garbage. Okay, you need to understand that any system that you have to initiate to be inside of that system is garbage. Okay, that's just something that somebody's creating so that you can follow them. All right, and it is what it is. I know a lot of people are going to say, I had to get initiated to learn certain things. No, you don't. No, you don't at all. All right. Any of the ancient and powerful systems. And when I say powerful, I'm going to speak about the systems that still have power to this day. The systems that are still being used by people around the world who are wheeling and dealing, who are doing amazing things on the planet. There was no initiation to get in to the club. All right. That didn't happen. Of course, that happens a lot today because initiations are very expensive. Okay, you're giving a lot of money to one or two people to give you some type of title that's going to make you more special than other people, so you can learn things that other people do not know. And that is not, it just doesn't happen like that. It really doesn't. And if that person's initiation was so powerful, if their information was so powerful, they would not need to charge you so much. Okay, and many people will tell you, oh, well, if we do like animal sacrifice, the animals are expensive. If that person is so powerful, they don't need to do all of those animal sacrifices to bring you to the foot of the veil. Okay, so when they bring in the circus along, when they bring in the Bronx Zoo to your initiation, you got to understand that you're dealing with someone. Just because they got scars on their face and they got the clothes and the beads and the language does not mean that you're dealing with somebody who's wielding any examples of great power. All right, so the question kind of sets you up for maybe some problems, depending on who you would ask of that. Okay, so you have to be very, very careful in terms of getting more in touch with your spirit and your soul. Again, that's a personal thing based on the disposition of your spirit, but you always want to look for the things that you do unconditionally. Okay, the things that you do that just they yield no profit. Okay, and no one else probably really understands why you feel as serious about them as you do. Okay, but those are the things that will usually bring your spirit closer to your soul. Okay, but one of the first things you have to develop is the understanding of your soul. What is my soul saying? What is the music of my soul? Everybody's soul has music. Everybody's soul has a song, just so you know. All right, and a lot of you might jump in and say, oh, I know my song. It's such and such by the OJs. No, it doesn't work like that. There's a song that only you know, okay, and that you will come in contact with when you allow yourself to just sit still and listen to yourself talk without moving your mouth and without thinking. Okay, when you allow yourself to sit and listen to your soul talk, or move when you're able to move to some form of rhythm, even if you're walking. Okay, you don't actually have to even be dancing. You can be walking or moving your head around. Okay, when you look at Hindus a lot, you always see they do that snake bob back and forth, like if they're trying to work up that Kundalini energy. Every time they speak to you, after they make a statement, they do that little head snake charm thing. Okay, even doing that will bring your spirit closer to your soul. It's not as difficult as people would make you think, but for certain people, usually the most difficult part is getting through the sicknesses that were given to them by their ego. That is the difficult part. The actual activities are not hard if you got time, if you got a little patience, and if you're not expecting these miracles right away. Then the work is not difficult at all. The hard part and the old part and the dense part is you. You're the issue. Okay, so bringing your spirit closer to your soul just goes back to what I was telling the brother who called earlier, coming back to those places of bliss. Okay, that's a start, but also finding out what your soul is actually saying. Look at your life, look at your name, look at your associations, look at your family that you came up in, and start looking at the picture and the image that the soul was orchestrating and drawing for you. And once you can look at that image, you'll get a better understanding of what your soul is gearing up to do. Okay? Because all of those things that you came through, whether it was hell or high water, all of those things that you came through were things that you came through in order to empower you, in order for you to get to the next place. Okay, so that's very important when you're dealing with just that idea that you're looking at. How do I get connected? And basically is what you're saying. How do I tune in at a level that's effective, beyond what I've already discerned. Okay, so we're going to take a real quick break. and we're going to come back to some more stuff that's happening. All right, so stay tuned. And again, the number is 347-945-7680. And I see some people have raised their hand. So when we come back, we'll take some of those calls as well, and we'll get into some more emails. Okay, and I'll be right back.
For all those in the New York area, please check out our Chief Jegna, Yuya Assaan-ANU, at Nicholas Bookstore on Sunday, January 19th from 2 to 4 p.m., where he will be hosting a workshop on self-actualization with the cosmic forces of West Africa. In this workshop, you will learn how to self-actualize through the universal energies that govern the laws and character of the cosmos. This workshop is a continuation of the Unleashing of Cosmic Forces of West Africa series that is currently being enjoyed by thousands of listeners on Chief Yuya's popular blog talk radio show, Enlightenment and Transformation. The workshop is Sunday, January 19th from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Nicholas Bookstore, which is located at 570 Fulton Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11217. The cost of this event is $10 at the door. Be prepared to change your life through aligning your spiritual faculties with their corresponding cosmic archetypes. Meet Chief Jegna Yuya Assaan-ANU at Nicholas Bookstore on Sunday, January 19th from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 570 Fulton Street, Brooklyn, New York, for the workshop Self-Actualization with the Cosmic Forces of West Africa. The first 10 people to RSVP on the Enlightened Spirit Meetup website will receive a free one-question reading at Nicholas Bookstore. That's right, the first 10 people to RSVP on the Enlightened Spirit Meetup at www.meetup.com/African-spirit-workers will receive a free one-question reading at Nicholas Bookstore. Also, if you attend this workshop, you will receive 50% off of A New Nation's Spiritual Phase 1 course, and also discounted copies of all books published by A New Nation. We hope to see you at Nicholas Bookstore for the workshop Self-Actualization with the Cosmic Forces of West Africa. And now back to our segment.
All right. We're back again. Foundational Friday. I am your host, Yuya Assaan-ANU, Chief Jegna of the ANU Spiritual Order, head instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Center. Okay, and I definitely hope those of you who are coming. A lot of people have emailed me and say, hey, I'm coming to the store for the workshop. Please RSVP on meetup.com. Okay, it's cool when you send me emails, but definitely send the RSVP because I actually don't handle all the particulars. Okay, so telling me doesn't get the information all the time to where it should go. So you definitely want to use the meetup site to RSVP and even suggest meetups in your area. Those of you who are interested in maybe having a workshop in your area or anything like that, you want to utilize that. This will be a really good piece. This workshop. I know a lot of you who have been following me for a while. You've probably heard, I guess probably by now, the basic Orisha breakdowns that I've been doing over the past year on different shows, because a lot of the shows, I mean, it's cool. People call me and they say, hey, I want the Orisha information. Like when we start to schedule shows and they, we finally get that phone call where we go over topics and stuff like that. They always say, I want to, if you could get into the Orisha stuff, that would be great. If you could break that down. So it's kind of like, okay, we'll break it down again, but each show represents a new audience who may have no idea about the tradition. So, it's good in that way. But this particular workshop, it's going to be really good because I'm going to go in a direction that most people are not used to. Okay. In terms of hands-on things that we can actually do, because we've done the breakdowns already. And now it's really about, well, how do we actually self-actualize? How do we actually, in a very transparent and clear, manner and way, how do we make it so that it's clear? How do we do these things? And more than just me saying, hey, well, take some cinnamon, some honey, rub it together, blow it out, your mouth through your back window and pray. It's more than that. How do we change our thought process as such so that it speaks to that level of self-actualization that we want to come into? And that's really what we'll be dealing with. And this workshop, really changing your thought process, changing your habits, but changing the way that you initiate when you need to handle something, when you have an issue, or when you need to bring something into your world. What is the first step? What is the first thing that you should do? What is the last thing that you should do, based on the formulas that have been put in front of you? Okay, so it's definitely going to be a bit different than what we've done. So, I'm excited to definitely see how the people absorb it and how they apply it. That's my main thing. Apply. Don't just go from lecture to lecture, collecting a bunch of information and having notebooks, for a decade. But put these things into action and really test these theories that people are sharing with you. Test the validity of the theories that people are sharing with you. Okay, so this is another piece I actually wanted to get into, because I have a lot of emails saying, as usual, I probably will not get through all of the emails. I know I always try to, and sometimes because of that, it's a balance between getting through the emails and answering the calls. But some of these emails have been with me for some time here, and people have been waiting to get their answers that they need, so they can, for some of them, move on to the next step of what they're working on. But one of them came from a student, and I won't give her name because I already told her I would say it on the air, so she'll know. And she was basically asking, paraphrase, that she has a shrine in her home, and she lives with a family member, and her family member asked if he could place some offerings on the shrine. So, she said no, because you had an opportunity to do this before, and when he did have his shrine, it wasn't kept up to the standards that she felt were respectful of how a shrine should be kept up. Okay, so she said no, and and she actually asked the question in the class as well, and there were some good suggestions given, like, we'll give the offering on his behalf, a couple other things like that. But I want to say this in that regards. First of all, it's a very personal decision. If you say you don't want somebody at your shrine, you want somebody at your shrine. If you do, you do. It's, there's no great spiritual answer for that. You have to pretty much go by the vibrations, because there are vibes coming off of your shrine, and you have to make a determination who may mess up the frequencies. Okay, if someone is vibrating at a certain frequency, and it's not really about what they put there, it's about who approaches. Who approaches. Are they clean? Are they pure of heart? Okay, that will cause more damage than anything else. Someone even just staring at your shrine, okay, can extract energy from it. All right, but here's the thing that I want you to understand. A shrine is not as personal as an altar. Okay, a shrine is not as personal as an altar. So we're going to kind of say technically, but technically, or basically, you can let anybody kind of at your shrine, in a sense, because a shrine is an energy that goes more outward. Okay, so a shrine goes outward, an altar goes inward. A shrine is a space that you set up to devote a space to a particular energy or a particular project, or an experience or something like that. So what you want to do is you want to, whatever goes on that shrine is going to be used. If that person comes and says, well, hey, I feel like the spirits are telling me that they want some diet soda, you might feel like, that's disrespectful. I don't give diet soda to the energies that I work with, or whatever. They're still going to use it. Okay, everything that comes to an altar gets used, to a shrine gets used, because remember, it's devoted to an energy or a purpose. It's going out to contact something and giving that thing a focal point to speak to you, or a focal point to share messages with you, whether it be that's where you do your divination and you have your oracles there, or whether it even be that you have candles there and you look at the condition of the candles. Or I have one student, he keeps water on his shrine, his jingili, and he finds that there's always a lot of bubbles in the water, and when he does other things, there's no bubbles. So that's a form of divination, because these entities are telling you something, that they're revealing messages to you. Okay, even in the fact that things are coming up, oxygen, air is coming up from the surface. Things, air representing intelligence. Okay, water representing emotions. So the intelligence is breaking through the emotions or the darkness of Olukun's realm. Shango breaks forth. Okay, so there's different ways that you can look at that. All right, but the altar is the one that is more personal. The altar alters your own personal consciousness, so that you have to be a little kind of careful of. It's not to say that the altar is an altar to you, though you could have one, but that's one where, again, there's only going to be things that are up there that bring you to a certain place. So if somebody puts some diet soda up there, it may bring you to a place that doesn't alter your consciousness in the direction that you want it to go. On a shrine, you could have 1,000,001 offerings and prayers, and people come up and do that. That's really not that big a deal. Okay, so you may want to differentiate your shrine from your altar. You may actually want to have a shrine space, like a communal shrine in the house, where it's like, everybody can come here and do their thing, and then you might want to have your own personal altars. Okay, so I would say that would be my answer for that, as far as that family member wanting to touch things that you may feel like, I don't want your hands on this, because you're just not coming with the right spirit or the right energy. Truth be told, when you're not there, they can always come to it anyway. So I think it's good in those situations when people are reaching out. It's just to have a communal space for people to work out of, or to maybe just sit and meditate. That's fine too. Give them a communal space. All right. So also, got another email. I want to get through this one by a GT. All right, and it says, I want to be successful and rich. What can I do to become rich? Work. Okay, work really hard at coming up with really brilliant ideas. All right, it's the best thing you could do. You want to be successful and you want to be rich. In all caps, by the way, GT. First though, and hold on, let's really, and I'm not, this is why I don't say the names. Okay, this is why I don't say names, because sometimes I need to say things that will help you beyond what you think you want right now. You wrote this in all caps, so you're yelling at me, number one, and number two, you spelled successful wrong. You spelled it SUCUSSFUL. Okay, so what you could do first, you have to learn how to approach people who you may need something from, resources from, and things like that. Typing in all caps would be considered yelling, and it's harder on the eyes than lowercase. So if you send someone something like this, it may immediately put them into a mood where it's like, and they don't give you the best of what they could have given you. All right, so you want to work on your networking skills in that sense. And your spelling. Make sure that if you're going to send something to someone, that everything in it is spelled correctly, because they may have an opportunity for you, but based on that, they may say, this person is not thorough, I don't want to use them for this or whatever. So this is not even a spiritual thing. I'm not even going to give you a spiritual answer. That's more of a social thing that you need to work on. And I just want to say that really only spiritual midgets aim for wealth and riches. Okay, so you can be a giant, you could play with the little kitty midget stuff. All right, if you move as a giant, wealth will come to you. Okay, it will just come. That's just how this thing works. If you move and aim to seek the wisdom, age-old wisdom, like the dragons in mythology, what does the dragon always do? The dragon always hoards gold and treasure and keeps it for itself. So one of the things the dragons represent is greed. and symbology. If you get them in your dreams, by the way, they do represent greed, but they also represent wealth. They represent, resources and alchemy, and, people have to always go slay the dragon to go get their money back, stuff like that. All right. So, one more email I'm going to hit up, because there's another one that I had, and this is by KR, and this person is from Slovenia, Europa. Europa is actually an African word. A lot of people know that. Europa was a Moorish princess. That's where the Europe came from, the term. People think Europe means to bind, but it actually doesn't. Europa was a princess who was kidnapped by the Europeans, and the Moors came in like gangbusters to come and break her out of Europe. And when they came, they subdued that space and they took it over. But the Europeans, they loved it so much, well, before they weren't Europeans, that Europa, the princess's name, they called that land Europa. Okay, so that's actually where it came from. We're taught in many lessons that it's Europe is Europe, meaning to bind, and certain people were sent to that landmass because it was a prison place, and they weren't allowed to leave because of their transgressions and even their mutations. But that's more fairy tale. All right, so it says, I am a MD, medical doctor. As a psychiatrist, I meet people every day, but I feel exhausted. I believe that I don't use my abilities as I should because I just can't do it. Please help me. Okay, we need to speak. Let's start there, okay, because this is a little deeper. When you're dealing with psychiatry, you always run the risk of taking on someone's energy based on your level of compassion, okay. And the show is getting ready to go in the archives, just so you guys know. We're going to close out soon, but those of you who are called in, it will go in the archives. Those of you listening from the web, which is most of you, in a few minutes, you can check the archives. You'll get the rest of it. But in any event, okay, so one of your issues here is that you're not recharging. You feel exhausted because what's happening is that you're doing role playing. Every time you're having a session with someone as a psychiatrist, what you're doing is you're becoming that person, because it's just like you say, when we say, okay, to understand someone, you have to walk a mile in their shoes. Or a person says, well, what would you do if you were in my position? And you immediately imagine yourself in their position. Okay. But by doing that, you're actually you're having a part of your spirit exit your body and enter their body. So you're taking on their burden and their energy, and that's why you're feeling exhausted after you're working with them. You don't feel that you're using all of your abilities. No, you're not using ability. You're not using talent and skill. You're using compassion, and compassion will wear you out. Remember, when we're dealing with compassion, we're dealing with the archetype of Oya, but we're also dealing with Tara. Tara means to cry, or she tore. These are all processes that rip us apart, that exhausts us, crying, tearing the soul apart, or tearing landmass and fabric apart, because that's what she tore, tearing the fabric of our being. And this comes from being overly compassion, being too connected, being too loving. Yes, one can be too loving. Some things we connect to way too much. So one of the things that you have to be able to do is you got to find more of a balanced middle point when you're speaking to people. Okay, you can't get wrapped up in their story, but have to listen to it more as fact when you're working with a person. And you have to know what you can't touch. Okay, just because you've received a degree, just because you've received accolades, doesn't mean that you're equipped to handle every level of psychosis. You can't. There are some people who will be beyond your skill level, and they'll toy with you. Okay, and that's when you need to refer them to someone else. Okay, so you have to be a little bit more sensitive to that, to the actual cases that you can take on, and the things that, hey, I just can't wrap my head around this. Okay. And if I can't wrap my head around it, now I'm going to be forced to wrap my spirit around it. My spirit will figure it out, but my spirit tends to figure out things as I sleep in the astral planes. So now I'm not going to rest properly. So I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be exhausted. Okay, so that's what you need to work more towards doing. You got to find that middle point, and you got to always make sure that you're doing exercises and eating foods that recharge chi, that recharge ashe, that recharge prana. Okay, you got to be very particular about that. You got to have certain days where you do nothing but just meditate and focus on one or two things. Okay, so you have to constantly be bent on recharging ashe, and stress is one of the main things that cause a leakage of your power. Okay, you cannot be stressed. So when you leave that space, you have to leave that space. And I know it's very difficult, because if you're dealing with a client that comes that you're not able to solve their case or to come up with some reasonable answers, you're going to leave and move forward. You're going to leave and move forward, and you take that demon home with you. Okay, you have demons that you're bringing home, just so you know. Okay, you're bringing those demons home so that you can resolve and make sense out of insanity. And they come right to sleep with you. They lay down with you. They affect your dreams. And when you wake up, you feel like you've been thinking and crying all night. So now you're exhausted, and you have to come back into that space again and work again. But now you're even more susceptible to attack and invasion by demonic or disagreeable energies. Okay, so you got to find your middle point. KR, that was your initials. All right, so that has been our segment, and of course, as always, I'm your Chief Jegna, Yuya Assaan-ANU. Make sure you guys check us out at Nicholas Bookstore this Sunday between 2 and 4 p.m. Okay, 2 and 4 p.m. I believe that's at 570 Fulton Street, Brooklyn, New York. The workshop is $10, so you want to RSVP in advance. All right, it's very inexpensive to get in there, and it's going to be an amazing event. I guarantee you that. I promise you that it will be amazing. So you want to make sure that you make yourself present for that. I know we have some people coming from out of town, so don't feel shy about doing that. Okay, it will be worth your time and worth the experience. All right, so until next time, all right, one thought, one aim, one vision, one destiny. All right, Odabo.